Welcome inside TCO Studios. I'm Tatum Everett, and this is Pick 6 presented by KFAN. We asked for your fan questions, and boy, you didn't hold back. So let's dive in with our panel of experts. First question is from Tyler. What's contributing more to this team's losses? Schematics, personnel, execution, or a combination of everything? We thought this one would be perfect for voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, to tackle.
Tyler J. Kurtz, wonderful question, but I'm going to go outside of the options that you offered, and I'm going to say turnover differential. Like when balls bounce off the hands of a Caleb Evans into Josh Palmer for a touchdown, or you're marching down the field and we drop it at the 28, or you're leaping for the pylon in Philadelphia and now all of a sudden you don't have the ball. Turnover differential numero uno for why the Minnesota Vikings have not won a game.
That's a very good observation, PA, as the Vikings are tied for last in the league in turnover differential at -7 with the Raiders. Moving on to question number 2. It's from Zach in Nisswa. He asks, what led to the Vikings' red zone struggles against the Chargers? Vikings Entertainment Network's Gabe Henderson takes this one.
The Vikings' red zone struggles against the Chargers came down to 2 things on Sunday. 1, turnovers. The Vikings had an interception the last play of the game, and then TJ Hawkinson had a turnover on the first drive of the game, both in the red zone. The other thing that really kept the Vikings out of the end zone were penalties. The Vikings had 6 penalties on the day. 4 of those penalties came in the red zone. 2 big mental errors, and the Vikings have to continue to fix that if they want to continue to be successful this year. I believe they will do so. We have Kevin O'Connell and our coaching staff staying on these guys week in and week out. I believe the Vikings will rewrite this ship and get this thing back on track. They have to at this point. At 0-3, you got to get this thing back on track, and I trust our front office to do so.
Moral of the story, play a clean game and you won't go 1-4 in the red zone like you did last week. Moving on to question number 3. This one is from Coach Roth. Play calling and or execution for third down and inside the 5-yard line was a problem last year, but never really was costly until the playoff game. Obviously, clocking the ball was the best alternative in the last game. Do y'all think that these things can be improved by coach? Well, that's a question from a football coach if there ever was one. So we've got a former coach and player now, Vikings radio analyst Pete Bursich, to answer this one from Coach Roth.
Coach Roth, thank you for the question, and I think it's a wonderful one. When you're talking about the deep red zone, getting to inside that 5-yard line, I don't think it's so much the play calling, it's the execution. And I think Coach can fix that, because what you need to do in times like this are focus on the details. No detail is unimportant. Every single player has to watch extra film, pay special attention, especially in those red zone situations. Football's a situational game. You've got to dig those things in. You've got to understand. You got to know what you're going to get. And by doing that, this thing will turn around.
Thanks, Pete. We love the optimism. There's still plenty of football left to play and plenty of pick 6 to get to as we've only reached the halfway point. This is question number 4. It's from Josh Laurie. He asks, do you think KOC will run more outside zone moving forward? I believe this is the best strategy versus running up the gut. Vikings analyst Ron Johnson takes this one.
Josh Lloyd, that's a great question. The outside zone run scheme versus running up the gut. Well, here's one thing to know about the zone run scheme, period. It can bounce backside behind the center. So the zone run scheme, period, I think for this team is going to be a better option. You have Brian O'Neill and you have Christian Darrisaw. I think those are 2 formidable guys to run behind. Up the gut, I know you're listening to a lot of the Twitter people in the media, like upset about the right guard and the center. I don't think that's primarily the issue. But when that line gets to move together, you can pick up guys that move in your area. So the zone run scheme overall, in my opinion, yes, is probably going to be a better long-term solution for this run game.
Thanks, Ron. The Vikings rushed for 130 yards, nearly doubling their season total so far just last week, hoping to build on that in Sunday's matchup. And let's just keep this positivity rolling with question number 5. It's a short and simple one from Chance. You think we can still win the division? ESPN's Jordan Reed addresses this one.
Absolutely. I think they can. And I think this was the entire blueprint of the Vikings with the competitive rebuild. They wanted to get young players at key spots, whether it was bringing in Byron Murphy at cornerback, who I thought has looked really good so far this season. And then other players like Ivan Pace Jr., who's had a very good season so far this year. So, and there's other key players that they're counting on. Jordan Addison, he's done a really good job so far as well. So I think them getting this experience and these reps is going to help them in the long run. So if they're able to turn it around, these young players are only getting experience, and it's going to help them in the end.
And the time is now to turn things around. Thanks, Jordan. Again, loving the positive vibes. We'll keep them going with this final question in Pick 6. This is from Lewis in Maplewood. As a former player, what's an 0-3 locker room like right now? What do players do to keep morale up? Well, former NFL QB Brady Quinn, who's actually on the Fox call this weekend for the Vikings-Panthers game, was in town and answers this one.
All right, being in an 0-3 locker room is tough, but usually there's a core nucleus of the team, a group of leaders who helps keep morale up. And they do that through getting guys to focus on just the next day ahead, the next game ahead. You can't look back. You can't look too far forward. You just got to fix the mistakes and know that it only takes one game, one win to get things back on track. So usually there's that core group of leaders in the team that are going to be able to echo that sentiment throughout the locker room.
Well, thank you, Brady. We look forward to hearing you on the call in Sunday's game. As for now, this will do it for Pick 6, but we'll be back in 2 weeks if you want to send in your questions. Look us up on Twitter @Vikings or @Tatum Everett and send them my way. It may end up on the next episode of Pick 6.